Hi class, it's Taylor Donato, and I'm going to talk about my international marketing plan and ideas for Ethique or Ethique cosmetics brand. I say cosmetics, but they actually are more of a shampoo, conditioner, face wash brand. And what is different about them is they're not your everyday shampoo in a bottle brand. They actually sell shampoo bars, conditioner bars, face wash bars, face serums in bars. And the reason they do this is because of sustainability. If you look them up on the internet, you would see that their whole thing is centered around being plastic free, being carbon neutral, by using direct trading. They're palm oil free, cruelty free, and vegan. Their packaging is actually fully compostable, and so that is their whole brand identity. They are sustainable. They are kind of something that I never heard of until I came across them on Instagram, actually, and now I love their products. So as far as their journey as a company, they were founded by a woman from New Zealand with the help of her mother and her family, and her name is Brienne, and she basically was frustrated with the amount of packaging that was produced by the cosmetics industry. So she formulated the products, runs the show, and basically created this brand from nothing, and has grown it into an international brand. So basically, it is a New Zealand-based company, and it started as Sorbet. That was the original brand name. But they quickly changed that to Ethique after some investments, and they were able to grow the brand and whatnot. Eventually, after a very long journey, they gained traction throughout social media and business reporters. They actually were featured in Forbes after the founder was at a conference and met a Forbes reporter, and she did an interview, and it ended up being a big story. And, it wasn't huge, but a couple weeks later, the Huffington Post then posted a story about her, and from there on, it started to gain traction. She had a couple celebrities post on their social medias about her, and it kind of took off from there. So then immediately, their worldwide campaign began, essentially, as they grew. This all happened in 2016, and then in 2016, they went international. So this was a very short timeline. So they first went to the U.S. when they decided to go international, because international for them is the U.S., because they are a New Zealand-based company. And they are the current highest-rated, fastest-selling shampoo on Amazon. So obviously, Amazon is a great way for sellers and buyers to purchase things from international markets, kind of connects the whole world. And they are now in 2,500 retailers in 16 countries across the world, from Japan and Australia to the USA, Hong Kong, and even a small Pacific Ocean nation called Vanuatu. That's how you say it. So they have kind of hit a lot of places. So when I was approaching this international marketing plan for Ethique or Ethique, I didn't necessarily think that they needed to expand internationally, or that they needed to begin internationally, because they already have that presence. So because they are already a well-established international company, my plan would be to revise and increase the amount of international marketing and advertising campaigns Ethique would push out. Just like I planned in my previous IMC campaign for them, I would increase television ads in the U.S. and then in turn do it internationally for this campaign. To do this, there would most likely need to be an increase in budget, which they are a semi-large company. They're available in Targets in the United States. So for those of you who are familiar with what Target sells, they genuinely sell nice products, and that's typically a big market for smaller brands to get into. But aside from the monetary aspect, the first stages would need to be a pre-planning couple of stages. First, Ethique would need to do some market research to better understand each of the country's standards, their expectations, the difference in technological level and access for each of these areas or regions, language and cultural differences, competitors in each country for these types of brands, and their differences in buying and business practices. This is super important when working in an international market. The standards of business in, say, Japan are different than the standards of business in the US. And while they may not be super different, there are different cultures. There are different levels of expectations, standards when it comes to marketing. So doing research and doing market research is super important, because getting to know your consumer and the area in which they live in, even if it's just regionally, so like an Asian region or the Ocean Pacific region or the United States region, or a specific region even in the United States, those all vary. So that is where some of that money would come in. Some of that capital would be needed. After that, we would need to invest in ideas that are relevant to that specific area, potentially using different content on a regional or cultural basis. So some content in the United States, as far as advertising goes, can be a little more provocative. Maybe you can do some things that are a little more adult in content. However, if you go to the same place in a rural area in Japan, they have different standards. They have different cultural standards. Or say South America, there are differences there. So you really have to analyze each of these places. And this would also explain the need for an increased budget, simply because you're going to need more manpower to produce more content, more things that are really zoned for these specific areas. This would entail creation of multiple different campaigns for each different area, and that can be costly. After that, after creating these campaigns, going through that whole process, we would need to make sure our messaging and ideas translate accurately. This is where things like a focus group would come in handy. Assembling groups of people who understand these cultures, these different cultures in these regional areas, or reside in each area, and asking them impressions about each ad campaign, what they do differently, if it's offensive, if it potentially could be offensive. These are all really important ideas, because there have been times when companies have gone international and they've not done their research thoroughly, and there have been different slang words used that in the United States might not mean one thing, but it means another thing in a different area. And so that can be really brand suicide. So when going international or continuing and expanding an international campaign, it's really important to do your research. This would give us a good idea of how specific ads would perform in certain areas, but would also give Ethique information about groups in each region for potential future campaigns. What works, what doesn't work. This is all things we can track through this campaign and through this expansion of the already existing international market plan. This is why I think that Ethique as a brand doesn't do a ton of marketing aside from social media marketing. So that's why I think it's important for television ads, potentially print ads, maybe pop-up shops, things like that we could do internationally would really create a buzz around the product, because right now it's online-based e-commerce mostly, aside from in the 2,500 retailers across the globe. But it's also a lot of social media buzz and word of mouth. So we really want to start, I think, being more aggressive would be my plan, especially internationally. All of this needs to be done on a manageable level in each area. So potentially beginning with maybe 2 to 3 market regions specifically. So let's say Japan, the European area, major European areas, and then the West Coast region of the United States. Let's say we start to push these ads out there. We do this process there. It's successful. So we continue on and expanding, so that you're not just doing 16 countries or 16 different regions at one time. That's not very manageable, or for a smaller company. Maybe choosing these regions based on places that need a boost in sales or efforts, or are just lacking in our market share. All of this would be done using the same brand guidelines across the board, with just a change in tone for each culture. So maintaining those market differences, those cultural differences, those technological differences, really honing in on each area and those regional areas that we can really control our messaging to. As for the plan, after all of that, it is important to measure the effects and how these types of plans work here. It is important to think about how each region reacts to each plan once they're launched after going through all these previous steps, and managing that and tracking that through analytics trackers, increase or decrease in sales, buzz going through certain areas on social media, on word of mouth, selling out in different stores. These are all ways we can track the success of this and then eventually expand to more and more regions with a more aggressive approach. Former Airbnb Chief Marketing Officer Jonathan Mildenhall, who was actually ranked as 8th on the world's most influential CMOs by Forbes list, said that amazing things will happen when you listen to consumers, or when you listen to the consumer. And as basic as that sounds, as easy as that sounds to come up with, it's true and relevant when going into not only an international marketing, but just starting a marketing plan or an advertising plan in general. Listening to those cultural differences, understanding the people in these different regions can really help you to have a successful marketing campaign. And that's why with Ethique, going a little more aggressive while still maintaining this, while doing market research, while doing focus groups, I think would really, really help build the brand and make it even larger than it already is. Listening to the consumer helps you understand all of these things, and it helps you understand brand perceptions and everything important to a marketer and advertiser. And that's why I think that this plan would be successful if we take it a little further than where it's at right now. Right now, it's social media presence strictly, word of mouth presence strictly, but if we increase that to some television ads, increase that across our markets, our regions, I think that Ethique would really, really grow. And obviously, I'm talking about this as if I worked for Ethique. And I think that this is something that I hope to see from them in the future, because I think the more we get advertising out there about sustainability and eco-conscious brands, the more likely they're going to be able to sell, and it's going to become more normalized. So I don't know if to you eco-conscious brands are important, but they're important to me. And just by changing to these different types of brands, it can make a big impact, and that's really something to hit on in these international markets, especially in places like China, where they have a lot of emphasis on there's a lot of pollution, there's a lot of people. Encouraging people to purchase these bars would really help that area. So that is something to know about each region, and that's why these basic things like market research are so important, and why I think this plan would work for Ethique. It's been a pleasure discussing marketing and advertising with you all. I hope to see you in future classes, and thank you so much, Dr. K, for all of your hard work and for making this as easy of a course as it possibly could be. So thank you so much, and have a good break before your guys' next semester. And for those of you who are graduating, congrats. Thanks. Bye.